Some found shackled to their beds. This brought to light after one of the girls, a teenage girl, made a daring escape. As we say good morning, looking at this today. I'm Bill Hemmer, live inside of America's Newsroom, and good morning at home and morning to you.
Good morning, Bill, and welcome back to you. I'm Sandra Smith. Officers say the couple's children, ranging in ages from 2 to 29 years old, were found in filthy conditions on the verge of starvation. Their neighbors are still in shock.
Everybody was super skinny and not athletic skinny, like malnourished skinny.
The chills in my body, I was just like, I can't believe that's happening. No one should be treated like that.
They were all in PJs because it was early in the morning. They were very, very pale skinned, like almost like they've never seen the sun.
Well, live from Los Angeles this morning, Jonathan Hunt on the story. Jonathan, good morning there. What do we know of the daughter who escaped and ran to police, Jonathan?
Well, she's 17 years old, apparently, Bill, and was obviously desperate enough and, importantly, brave enough to make her escape from that house. She had apparently found a cell phone inside. She got out. She used that cell phone to call police. They met her, interviewed her, and then showed up at the house, as you can see in this security camera footage shot from a house nearby, neighbors of where all of this was going on. The police found then, obviously, what is an unimaginable scene. 13 people aged 2 to 29, all emaciated, all presumably terrified. The scene was disgusting, according to the cops. Some of those 2 to 29-year-olds were chained to beds. All of them were the children of 57-year-old David Turpin and 49-year-old Louisa Ann Turpin. And what is interesting here, Bill, is that when cops first went in there, they thought that all of these 13 were kids because they were so ill, so emaciated. And as it turns out, they were as old as 29 years old. And the 17-year-old, for instance, who police first met, they thought she was just 10 years old because she was so malnourished.
You look at some of this video. I mean, this is a neighborhood with a lot of homes. Did the neighbors notice anything at any point?
Yeah, it's strange. This was not some isolated ranch. You're in a real neighborhood here. And some of the neighbors that you just heard from were saying, well, we thought the kids were malnourished, but they didn't obviously feel that there was anything that made them compelled to act. Now, the family also fooled others. Among them, a gentleman by the name of Kent Ripley. He owns the Elvis Chapel in Las Vegas, where the Turpins, as you can see in this photo, apparently renewed their vows with the kids present several times. And Ripley, the owner of that chapel, says he never noticed anything untoward. Listen here.
They seemed to care about each other. They cared about the kids. They seemed to smile. The kids were smiling. They didn't hide behind themselves. They were very quiet.
Now, the Turpins are now being held on $9 million bail. The charges they could face would include torture and child endangerment. And obviously, Bill, there's a lot we don't know about this, a lot of questions we all want answered. And authorities in Riverside are going to hold a news conference at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. here in L.A. We hope we'll get some of those answers then, Bill.
Indeed, it'll be interesting. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Hunt there, live in Los Angeles.
Meanwhile, Bill, it's a big day for President Trump as he and the Republicans continue their push for immigration reform. Only a few days remain to get a deal done. Moments ago, the president sent out his first tweet of the morning saying, quote, "We must have security at our very dangerous southern border, and we must have a great wall to help protect us and to help stop the massive inflow of drugs pouring into our country." Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live from the North Lawn on this busy Tuesday morning. John, good morning.
Sandra, good morning to you. Just 4 days now to make a deal on spending, and the Democrats are putting the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the so-called Dreamers program, front and center in that debate. And the president continuing his feud with Senator Dick Durbin over whether the president used the word S-hole in that Oval Office meeting last Thursday. The president tweeting, quote, "Senator Dickie Durbin totally misrepresented what was said at the DACA meeting. Deals can't get made when there is no trust. Durbin blew DACA and is hurting our military." Durbin, on the other hand, insists he heard what he heard, and he's not backing down from that. Listen here.
I know what happened. I stand behind every word that I said.
Durbin also insisting that the president is not negotiating in good faith, tweeting Republicans and Democrats negotiated in good faith to reach a deal that gives you what you asked for in front of the country on Tuesday. It's time to lead and support the bipartisan deal. But Durbin's idea of what was agreed to in that meeting and the president's appear to be two different things. The president and the White House insisted after the meeting that they got a deal on a DACA fix, border security, including funding for a wall, an end to chain migration, and an end to the visa lottery program. Last night on Colbert, Senator Chuck Schumer said, well, Democrats have tried to give the president what he wants. Listen here.
That bill, Donald Trump at one point said, well, there are 3 areas of contention. We've tried to, the 3 of them, the 6 of them, tried to go somewhat in his direction on those 3 areas in return for Dreamers. If this bill doesn't become law, there'll only be one thing standing in the way, and that's Donald Trump and his intransigence.
So that in that statement, Senator Chuck Schumer said we went somewhat in his direction, which means that the president did not get everything that he was looking for in that deal. Schumer also using the president's comments from last Thursday as leverage, saying, Mr. President, show that you're not a racist and cut a deal on DACA. The White House is still confident that it will get a deal. I'm told that likely not this week, though. There's still too much ground to cover. The White House, Sandra, also believing that they're going to get a spending bill, a continuing resolution. Sarah Huckabee Sanders just a short time ago saying that she needs to impress upon the Democrats that these have to be 2 separate things. You need a clean spending bill. Then you can figure out DACA. Don't put those 2 things together. Sandra?
We'll see where all that goes. Meanwhile, John, we're expecting to hear from the president's doctor today.
3:30 this afternoon during the daily briefing, Dr. Ronnie Jackson will get up there and he will brief us on the president's health. The president had about a 3-hour exam at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Ronnie Jackson, you can see him there joking with the president. Said in a cursory statement afterwards that the president is in excellent health, but will get a greater level of granularity, let's say, this afternoon. We'll probably learn what the president's cholesterol level is at the very least.
We will look forward to that. John Roberts at the White House for us. Thank you.
Byron York, chief political correspondent, Washington Examiner. Byron, good day to you there in Washington.
Good morning, Bill.
You make the case that we're sailing in new waters on this budget matter because it's Democrats pushing for a possible shutdown. How does that change anything, Byron?
Well, you know, if you talk to Republicans at any time over the past few years, they would tell you they believe in one thing, which is Republicans always lose government shutdown fights. And they believe that because they lost big ones in 1995 and in 2013. In those times, they tried to attach their own spending and policy demands onto legislation that was required to keep the government running. And it appeared that they were holding the whole government hostage to their particular policy demands. Now what we have is Democrats saying that they will stand in the way of funding the government unless their policy demands, which is legalization for DACA recipients, is granted. So I think what we're going to see is, do Republicans always lose shutdown fights, or is it the party that's trying to attach its own demands to government funding? Does that party lose spending fights?
It's an interesting way to look at it. Tom Cotton, the Republican from Arkansas, sent this out about 36 hours ago. So Democrats are now threatening to shut down the government if they don't get amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. Let's see how that works out for them, especially in places like West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Montana. That is a clear reference to Senate races next November. How does that fit into your scenario?
Yeah, he did not pick those states at random, and those are states that were won by Donald Trump, in which Democratic senators are up for election this year. And you have to remember, if Republicans are united on a clean bill to keep the government running, there's 51 of them. They only need 9 Democrats to go along with them to be able to pass this bill. It's not as if the whole Democratic Party has to go along with it. Many of them will indeed want to make a statement and vote against government funding to show how dedicated they are to the DACA cause. But I think what Senator Cotton is saying there is that there are enough senators, Democrats, who are going to have their own political fortunes to think about that they'll go along, and they don't want to be blamed for shutting down the government.
Thank you, Byron. Analysis
Thank you,
there
Bill.
in Washington, D.C. Byron York, good to have you back with us today. Interesting scenario that he lays out, how you weigh the politics of this, too. So we'll cover it hour by hour
President
as we
just
go.
tweeting again just a minute or two ago, saying the biggest loser in a shutdown of our government would be the military, and he has stuck on that message. So we'll see. All right, and as we mentioned, Steve Bannon arriving moments ago on Capitol Hill. He's going to be meeting behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee. What they are hoping to learn today.
Also, the Homeland Security Secretary will appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee 1 hour from now. As this fight for immigration reform continues, the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, will answer all of that coming up in a moment live.
Also, the fallout continues over the false missile alert, and the U.S. And its allies prepare for a big meeting on the North Korean nuclear threat today. Ambassador John Bolton is here. He will join us live.
It is right to be concerned about a possible North Korean threat, whether they push the wrong button in Hawaii or not. We've had too big a vacation for too long from people appreciating that rogue states with nuclear weapons can be a problem for the United States.
So the former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon, about 45 minutes ago, arriving on the Hill. He appears before the House Intelligence Committee. It's not public, it's in private, but it's his first interview and appearance on the Hill before any of these committees on these Russia matters. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, author of Vengeance, and a Fox News contributor. Mr. Speaker, it's great to have you back with us. I want to start with Bannon. Let's move to all the other matters next, because Bannon goes today. Then later in the week, I believe it's Corey Lewandowski and Hope Hicks will appear there as well. Bannon was not on the team when the Russia meeting happened in June. What do you think he offers?
I have no idea. I think probably people are concerned about what happened during the transition. Bannon was right there during the transition. He's a smart guy, and he certainly knew a lot about dealing with the Russians, and had been in the military and had a pretty good mind about these things. So I think it's just part of mopping up the whole thing. So far, we have no credible evidence of any kind from anyone that involves Donald Trump. I mean, this thing's been going on now over a year, and it's like a machine. It's like a Lego machine. It just keeps moving, but it doesn't produce anything.
We'll see where that goes. And we're talking to our reporters on the Hill, and we'll bring our viewers information as we get it. Now to this brand new tweet from 6 minutes ago. On screen, here it is. The Democrats want to shut down the government over amnesty for all and border security. The biggest loser be a rapidly rebuilding military at a time we need it more than ever. We need a merit-based system of immigration, and we need it now. No more dangerous lottery. I thought I heard you say earlier that you believe they will get a deal maybe 6 to 8 weeks from now. I want to know if you stand by that, number one. And number two, given the amount of resistance on the left against this White House, do you think Democrats are willing to give President Trump a victory on anything? Or are they okay running out the clock until next fall?
Well, look, I think the Democrats have a huge problem because you go to North Dakota, Montana, Indiana, Missouri. These are all states that have Democrats up for re-election that were carried by Trump. West Virginia. You're going to go there as a Democrat and say, I closed the federal government. I closed the U.S. military. I put us all at risk. Over 600,000 or 700,000 people who came here illegally because they mean so much to me that I was willing to sacrifice the safety of the country. Those are not states where that message is going to work very well. And so my guess is, in the end, first of all, they'll find enough votes to not close the government. This is a guess. Nobody knows. They'll find enough votes to not close the government right now. They'll keep talking. When even the Washington Post writes an editorial and says, take the deal, this is to the Democrats. It said, look, the president's offering you a deal here. Take it. There's a point where the country will just be disgusted. And by the way, if the dreamers ought to be, the president should encourage every dreamer in America to go visit a Democratic office. The president is saying, I'll sign it if they'll just agree to a deal. He's not blocking it. They're blocking it because they don't want to give him anything. Well, I think if you're a dreamer and you're told, we can make all of your life legal, except these clowns over here, the Democrats, won't agree to do anything. I think that's a pretty limited position for Schumer and Pelosi to take their party to.
Do you stand by your statement they get a deal in 6 to 8 weeks or no?
Yeah, I think they probably do, because I think everybody just gets tired of it. They get exhausted.
You wrote a piece, it was published yesterday, on Martin Luther King Day in America. I want to read a little bit for our viewers that you wrote. Here it is. Unfortunately, we have not yet attained the America for which Dr. King called. Faced with these failures, some Americans have given up on Dr. King's dream and have begun to advocate a form of toxic identity politics, which abandons color blindness as an ideal. That's at foxnews.com. Expand on that with where you think we are today.
Well, look, I think when you get to a point, for example, where one school in Washington State wanted to have a day where no whites were allowed on campus, that's the opposite of Dr. King. When you get to some of the people in Black Lives Matter who said to the ACLU leader in Virginia they wouldn't let her talk at all, because you have in a sense a psychological resegregation. You have some schools now that will have a black-only dorm. I mean, that is the opposite of what Dr. King stood for. And I think that it's very important for us to remember his goal was to get America to live up to its own ideals. He wasn't anti-American. He was chiding the rest of us because this is a very idealistic country which has fallen short of its ideals. And he said, he wanted his children to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Well, I think that's a pretty good standard for all of us to try to live up to. And I think that we ought to every year make this day a serious day, not just go shopping or whatever, but to really talk among ourselves. What do we have to do to make it one America for everybody so that everybody truly has the ability to pursue happiness, as our Declaration of Independence says God has endowed them?
No. Well stated. We shall endeavor. Thank you, sir, very much. The House Speaker, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Look forward to having you back. Thank you. Sandra.
Well, all of these big issues on tap for this week, with just a few days left to go before that government shutdown. Ari Fleischer, former press secretary to George W. Bush, joins us to break it all down. Plus, it could be another, can you believe this, record-breaking day on Wall Street. The market set to open in just a few moments, and 26,000 is on the horizon. Charles Payne, host of Making Money, which you can catch weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Fox Business Network. Now, I should point out that what gives us a good idea of how the stock market is going to open is looking at the futures on the stock indexes. And right now, Dow futures are indicating a 200-point surge on the open. That puts us well into record territory.
Well into record territory, north of 26,000. This will be the fastest 1,000-point move in the history of the stock market. Obviously, as you go higher, it becomes a smaller percentage gain, but it's nonetheless mind-boggling impressive. And the arc, by the way, the arc of the stock market is matching the arc of enthusiasm in this country. There was a lot of talk last week about that Quinnipiac poll. I looked at one section, just how many people said the economy is excellent. In January, it's 18%. In December, it was 11%. A year ago, it was 2%. That arc is skyrocketing right at this very moment. Everyone is buying into it, and it becomes self-fulfilling to a degree.
So does that sort of combat the talking point that you often hear when talking about this record stock market? This people say, well, it just doesn't affect everyday Americans. You're saying that the optimism is out there to back up this surging stock market.
Absolutely. The optimism is out there, and one thing we've entered into is, the earnings season. One thing everyone's talking about, the earnings, the bottom line, how companies are going to do very well with this tax cut. I say look at the top line revenues. You want the ultimate proxy on how Americans feel. It's how they spend their money. Top line growth, revenue growth of corporate America is skyrocketing. It's a story that goes untold, but that's another sign. And by the way, it's not only affecting everyone, it's a reflection of everyone.
You know who's not happy this morning is the president, because he says nobody's talking about this economic success in the soaring stock market. He just tweeted this literally just a few moments ago, Charles. He said, do you notice the fake news mainstream media never likes covering the great and record-setting economic news, but rather talks about anything negative or that can be turned into the negative? The Russian collusion hoax is dead, except as it pertains to the Dems. Public gets it. To your point, the public seems to be feeling a lot better about the economy these days.
The public does feel a lot better about the economy. Now what Democrats are doing is trying to give credit to President Obama. But I will say, with respect to the mainstream media ignoring this, they do their viewers a disservice. because when you dissuade people from feeling optimistic, when you dissuade people from a window of opportunity, which is occurring, you stop them from bettering their own lives. So you have people there afraid, intimidated, or just not understanding, hey, there's a groundswell of opportunity, and these are the kind of groundswells that have made America great in the past.
So are you suggesting this stock market rally is going to continue, Charles?
I think it's got many more years to go. I equate it to 1995 or 1925. I think we were in an 8-year period of survival mode. We've gone into growth mode, and we've gone back to our natural DNA of both as American citizens, the same folks that Tocqueville came over and marveled that everyone thought they could be rich. How dare they?
So let me just ask you something.
Sure.
There's folks at home who are probably biting their nails saying, gosh, I feel like I missed out on this. They didn't buy into this rally. And is it too late? If somebody wasn't buying all the way up to here, should they get in now?
I really think so. I don't think it's too late. You know, just don't make a mistake. Don't buy something high risk thinking that you're going to double your money overnight. You know, it's a long-term endeavor no matter what. I'll give you an example. This morning, General Motors was able to give earnings guidance for this year and next year, both above Wall Street estimates. So if a company that large can look that far out, it tells you where this economy is going.
Unbelievable. So another 1,000-point milestone, possibly a minute and a half from now, we'll see the Dow top 26,000. We'll keep watching
It'll be a record-breaking move, a 1,000-point move.
Could be a huge day.
Yeah.
Charles Payne, thanks for being here this morning.
Keep it rolling, right? We are now awaiting testimony from Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. She will be before about 30 minutes from now, the Senate Judiciary Committee facing senators as the battle for immigration continues. We can expect a flurry of questions on border security, the Dreamers, and the future of certain programs. Plus, dramatic new dash cam video showing a car going airborne, flying into the second story of a building. How in the highway did this happen? Whoa. Yesterday, we were talking about Dow 25,000 because we were. And now here is where we are today. We land above 26,000. In the history of the Dow 30, we have never seen stocks this high. A major move up today, more than 300 points at the open.
Guess how many days it took to go through another 1,000-point milestone?
I thought it was like 7 working days or close to it.
Today makes 8. Today would make 8 if it actually closes above there. So, wow.
It's safe to open your 401k, America. You bet on it.
That's for sure. All right.
Yeah, the president wants to get a good deal. He's worried that Democrats' unwillingness to actually put the country ahead of their party is what's stalling things from moving forward, whether it's the budget or whether it's a deal on DACA. I think they're using it as an excuse not to help this president get something accomplished, which I think is a sad day for our country, that they're willing to throw away the progress and negotiations and not make big steps that we need to happen.
That was White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders just moments ago talking to reporters about a potential immigration deal. Lawmakers hoping to get something done by this Friday. But the White House says Democrats are playing games with the DACA deal. Let's bring in our panel. Former Director of Strategic Communications for Hillary Clinton, Adrienne Elrod, is here. And Ned Ryan, former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Thanks to both of you for joining us this morning. A busy day, a busy week.
Sandra.
Dow's topping 26,000. The president's tweeting about that. But Adrienne, we go back to what you heard from Sarah Sanders. The president wants to get a deal done. Republicans want to get a deal done. Do Democrats?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, listening to Sarah Sanders say that, I find it to be very, very laughable because Democrats have made it very clear from the very beginning that we will come to the table on a compromise. We've been willing to compromise on measures like border security. We, of course, prefer a clean DACA bill. It looks like we're not going to get that, even though the votes between Democrats and Republicans are both there. But look, I want to make this clear. If the bill on DACA, especially a clean bill, were to come to the floor today, if Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell were to put this bill on the floor for a vote today, it would pass with Democrats and Republican support. 70% of the country want DACA recipients to have a permanent fix because these people are here by no fault of their own. So again, to blame this on Democrats when Democrats have, by the way, no control over the House, Senate, or the White House. Republicans have full control here is just simply laughable.
And here's another message from the White House, from the president himself, Ned. The Democrats want to shut down the government over amnesty for all and border security. This is in a tweet just a few moments ago this morning. The biggest loser will be our rapidly rebuilding military at a time when we need it more than ever. We need a merit-based system of immigration, and we need it now. No more dangerous lottery, tweets the president. Ned?
Oh, I'm staggered at the rank hypocrisy of Democrats. I mean, think about it. We are asking for full funding for wall and border security, an end to chain migration, into the visa lottery system, and we are willing to give dreamers legal status, green cards, and I would argue, I argued this in a recent op-ed at American Greatness, give them a 5-year path to citizenship. And let's not forget, Sandra, Democrats not too long ago by the name of Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Chuck Schumer voted for the Yuma sector wall, and a senator by the name of Dick Durbin in 2010 called for an end to chain migration. It is staggering, the hypocrisy that they're getting away with. Republicans need to say, we will not let Democrats hold the American people's national security hostage and try to blackmail them over a word that might or might not have been said. Republicans are willing to come to the table to make a compromise, and it's time to make a compromise. Here's what I'll also say, Sandra. A friend of mine in the Freedom Caucus texted me over the weekend and said, Republicans do not want to shut government down. We are willing to pass a continuing resolution out of the House. We have the votes. We are willing to send that to the Senate. And then the onus is on Democrat senators to decide whether they want to vote to continuing resolution to keep the government open. It will be on Democrats to decide if they want to shut the government down.
It's almost like Democrats are going into this overly confident, Adrian, that they can win this fight.
Well, first of all, I want to go back to something that Ned said about the votes being there. If the votes are there, Ned, then the Republicans should pass this, because Republicans have a majority of the House and the Senate. So if the votes are there, bring it to the floor, pass it. Secondly, Democrats, again, have made it very clear that we are willing to compromise on measures like border security. Kamala Harris, one of the most progressive senators in the country, has made that point. So, again, the votes are there. Whether Republicans want to bring this up as a standalone measure, absolutely, it's a compromise. Absolutely. So, yes.
No, if compromise includes full funding for the wall and border security, chain migration, and the end of the visa lottery
well, this
system,
is the fight that's
we're not going
happening
to fund the wall.
vote.
That is where we draw the line.
We're seeing this
parameters have been laid out.
I want to get this in here, Ned. This is Senator Tom Cotton, who as you know, is a top Trump ally. He's almost daring Democrats to take the plunge here. He tweeted this out. So Democrats are now threatening to shut down the government if they don't get amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. Let's see how that works out for them, especially in places like West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, and Montana. Ned?
Well, there's a reason he listed those states. Those are all Democrat senators that are in very red states that are up for election in 2018. And I think they need to call their bluff and say, are you going to hold hundreds of millions of Americans hostage over immigration policy that affects hundreds of thousands of people that are here illegally, and to be fair, here illegally of their own, not of their own volition? Need to call their bluff. I would say House passes a continuing resolution, send it to the Senate. Let's see what the Democrats do, and let's see if they're willing to stake their electoral chances on this vote and call their bluff.
All right, so Adrian, I mean, there's a lot at stake here. A government shutdown. Obviously, the Trump is warning what this means for our military. Are Democrats in these final days, are we going to see some sort of compromise come from their side, or are they just going to stay at this?
Look, I think 70% of the country wants DACA recipients to have a path to citizenship. We're tired of watching them be used like a political football for a litany of reasons. But look, of course, Chuck Schumer, of course, Nancy Pelosi, of course, Democrats would like to see a compromise here. But again, we have to take a stand. The January 19th spending bill is the last train out of the station. We have very little bargaining room because we have no control over the House or the Senate. So we'd like to see a compromise. We'll see what happens. And I do hope that the government does not shut down. I think that's something we can all agree on. It's not helpful. But
it will be
again,
no fault of the Republicans.
No, absolutely not. It will be the full Republicans' fault because there are the votes here. You can bring it to the floor for a vote right now.
Turns out, and it does usually fall on the Republicans. So, I mean, do we come down to the final hours and minutes of this week here?
No, I think what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to push this right up to the very end of the debate. I will say this. I think this is a false deadline. This is the thing that frustrates me about how D.C. works, Sandra. Everybody puts these false deadlines in place. You know, DACA, the real DACA deal doesn't have to be done until March. And so we could pass a continuing resolution for 6 weeks, give ourselves time to really have this debate. And so all these false deadlines to me are just a joke that we continue to play and go along with in D.C.
But why
Again,
do
at the
that
end
if
of
the
the
votes
day, I
are
will say
there?
this though: Republicans need to all get on the same page and get their messaging correct, because they always seem to lose these fights. If they get their messaging correct, they can win this fight.
All right, well, you guys set it up for us. A lot of people returning to work today and a holiday shortened week. It's going to be something to watch. Thanks to both of you for being here, Ned
Thank
and
you
Adrian.
so much.
Good
Thanks.
debate there. Also busy day here in America's newsroom. The U.S. taking part in a high-stakes meeting today on the growing threat out of North Korea as we learn about yet another false missile alert. Ambassador John Bolton on deck for that. Plus, stunning new video coming in showing a woman driving the wrong way on a highway, heading straight for a police cruiser. Details on how that worked out. Plus, breaking news: 4 police officers are shot. What we're learning about that situation in moments.
We could really use your prayers.